Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. What if the person you trust most suddenly disappears, then returns with a baby in her arms? What if love is still there, but suspicion creeps in? Is this child truly mine, or someone else's? When Alex forgives Tuna and welcomes her back to the farm, his heart is torn between tenderness and doubt. Can love survive when even silence feels like betrayal? Can promises erase the shadows of suspicion? Stay with us until the very end of this story, because the most painful truths are not shouted, but whispered in moments of hesitation, in the weight of an unfinished glance. Don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 1,000 followers, so we can bring you even more stories full of drama, emotion, and the fragile choices of the human heart. The air was still heavy with the scent of last night's rain, soil damp beneath their steps, as Alex led Tuna and little Henry back through the gates of the farm. The wooden doors groaned as they opened, and a hush settled over the yard, broken only by the distant calls of roosters. Alex carried her belongings, careful and deliberate, while Tuna held the child close to her chest, as if the baby's warmth could shield her from all the storms she had walked through. Inside, they placed Henry gently onto the mat, draping a mosquito net above him. The child's breathing was soft, steady, like the fragile rhythm of hope. Tuna whispered thanks, her voice carrying both weariness and a longing to belong again. Alex nodded, but his eyes lingered longer than they should have on the boy's face. Henry's features seemed unfamiliar, like a melody played in a strange key. The house, though cluttered and worn from her absence, felt alive again. Dust motes drifted through streaks of sunlight, and the farm animals outside rustled restlessly, as if sensing a change. For a moment, Alex almost allowed himself to feel peace, yet beneath the quiet, a thought pressed against his ribs like an unspoken accusation. Was Henry truly his blood? He swallowed the question, hiding it behind a smile as he offered to fetch water, to sweep, to do anything that kept his hands busy. Silence thickened between them, not from hostility, but from the weight of things neither dared to say. In that silence, the farm breathed again, alive, yet carrying secrets in its soil. The kitchen filled with the soft crackle of oil and the faint aroma of fresh herbs. Alex moved with quiet precision, frying eggs, steaming vegetables from the garden, while Tuna stood nearby, washing dishes with sleeves rolled up. Their movements overlapped like an old duet, awkward at first, then slowly settling into rhythm. The table was simple. Fish from the pond, eggs still warm from the hens, greens glistening with steam. When they sat down, Henry slept peacefully in the next room. For the first time in a long while, the house held the sound of shared laughter, of spoons tapping against bowls, of voices lowered in half-whispers. Tuna looked at Alex, her eyes carrying both gratitude and regret, and promised she would not leave again. Her words trembled, but in them was a sincerity that seemed to root itself into the wooden walls of the old farm. Alex smiled faintly, yet his gaze wavered. He watched Henry's small chest rise and fall beneath the net, his features bathed in the pale glow of a flickering bulb. The boy looked so serene, so untroubled. But something gnawed at Alex. The curve of the child's nose, the softness of his hair, details that sparked a quiet unease. The meal that should have been comfort now felt like a fragile bridge over uncertain waters. Every bite carried warmth, yet every glance carried doubt. In that quiet room, surrounded by the smells of home, Alex's heart wrestled between tenderness and suspicion, as though love itself was asking him to choose, to trust or to question. Night settled gently over the farm, its silence broken only by the chirping of crickets. Lytuna sat with her hands folded on her lap, her eyes lowered as she spoke. Her voice trembled like leaves in the wind. She explained why she had left. The shock of learning that Johnny was not her brother, the way confusion had driven her away without a word. Each sentence was heavy, but also fragile, as though it might shatter if touched too harshly. Alex listened without interruption. His heart softened with every word, recalling the days he had searched for her, calling her name in vain, his chest burning with both anger and fear. He remembered the hollow nights, the ache of absence, and the desperate prayers whispered into emptiness. Now she was here again, offering apology with eyes full of guilt, and he wanted nothing more than to forgive. Yet, when his gaze wandered toward Henry, sleeping innocently nearby, something inside him faltered. He nodded, assuring her he bore no anger, but within him, shadows stirred. Could her disappearance have hidden more than grief? Could the child, so perfect and so unfamiliar, carry another man's blood? Lytuna reached for his hand, and Alex allowed it, though his grip was hesitant, uncertain. Between them lay a silence filled with both reconciliation and suspicion. The night was calm, the air cool, but within Alex a quiet storm began to rise. Questions unspoken, fears unconfirmed, a love tested by the weight of doubt. The following morning, sunlight spilled gently across the fields, warming the damp earth. The farm stirred awake. Pigs grunted in their pens, chickens clucked restlessly, and the pond shimmered with ripples as fish waited to be fed. Alex carried buckets of feed, while Lytuna swept the courtyard, her movement steady yet graceful, each stroke of the broom a quiet offering of belonging. Together they worked in silence, yet the silence spoke louder than words. Alex watched her bend to scatter grain for the chickens, her hair catching the light, her figure framed against the overgrown garden. It should have been a comforting sight, like the return of something lost. Instead, doubt whispered louder. Was she truly here to stay? And was the child really his bloodline to claim? Lytuna's laughter rang suddenly as Henry stirred awake, breaking Alex's thoughts. She rushed inside, returning with the baby in her arms. The child's small fingers clutched at her dress, his eyes blinking against the brightness of day. Alex forced a smile, stepping forward to help, his hands brushing against hers as he touched Henry's tiny arm. For a fleeting second, tenderness surged, almost enough to silence his suspicion. But the boy's eyes, wide and searching, seemed unfamiliar, like windows reflecting someone else's shadow. Alex withdrew, masking his unease beneath the tasks of the farm. The sweeping, the feeding, the simple labor became his refuge, a way to bury the storm in his chest. Yet every glance at Lytuna, every sound of Henry's cry pressed the question deeper. Love or deception? What truth lay hidden here? The house carried the scent of cooking rice and boiled vegetables, the kind of aroma that lingered with comfort. Lytuna moved gently between tasks, stirring a pot, rocking Henry in her arms, setting aside tiny clothes to dry. Her every gesture radiated a fragile tenderness, as though she were rebuilding a life brick by brick, one quiet act at a time. Alex watched from the doorway, his arms crossed loosely, his expression unreadable. He should have felt at peace, the farm alive again, the woman he had longed for finally back, the sound of a child softening the edges of silence. But doubt was a thorn beneath his skin. When he looked at Henry, he searched for familiarity, his own features reflected in the child's face. Yet the boy's innocence offered no answers, only more questions. Lytuna noticed his gaze and smiled faintly, as though trying to bridge a distance she could not name. She spoke of planting vegetables, of wanting to clean the garden, of making the farm beautiful again. Alex nodded, but his heart wandered elsewhere, circling the same silent fear. Was Henry truly his? Or had she brought back a piece of another man's life? The clatter of dishes, the hum of a fan, the rustle of leaves outside, all became a muted backdrop to his inner storm. Suspicion grew not from her words or actions, but from the quiet spaces between them, from what she did not say. Love asked him to trust, yet fear demanded proof. And in that tension, every glance, every silence felt like the edge of a fragile truth. The afternoon light fell soft and golden across the veranda, where Lytuna cradled Henry close. Alex sat nearby, his hands resting idly on his knees, his eyes following every movement with a mixture of longing and restraint. After a long pause, he asked the question that had lingered unspoken. What name had she given the child? Her lips curved gently as she whispered, "Henry." The name floated into the still air, simple yet firm, as though it had been waiting all along. Alex repeated it under his breath, "Henry," testing how it felt on his tongue, how it echoed inside his chest. The name was good, strong, but it did not quiet the unease gnawing at him. Lytuna looked at him with steady eyes, and for a moment he thought he saw a plea there, to accept, to trust, to let go of the storm in his heart. Alex nodded, managing a smile, but his thoughts betrayed him. Was Henry truly bound to him by blood, or only by circumstance and care? As the evening settled in, Lytuna promised she would never leave again. Her words trembled but carried a weight that stilled the moment. Like an oath sealed in silence, Alex reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his gesture tender but uncertain. He wanted to believe her, to surrender his doubts, yet the seed of suspicion remained rooted. The farm seemed to listen, the fields stretching wide, carrying their promises into the fading light. Between past wounds and present vows, the fragile thread of trust quivered, waiting to see if it would hold or break. Morning came with the rustle of leaves and the soft crowing of roosters. Alex's sister arrived at the farm, her steps quick but her eyes hesitant. She carried warmth in her smile, yet beneath it lingered a weight unspoken. Sitting with Lytuna, she asked gently about her health, about Henry, her voice betraying a quiet guilt. She admitted she had once spoken harshly, that regret had followed her ever since. Lytuna lowered her gaze, then lifted it again with a faint smile. "It's past now," she murmured, as if releasing the heaviness both carried. Alex stood nearby, watching the exchange, the knot in his chest tightening. He wanted to believe in this moment of reconciliation, in the sincerity of words offered and forgiven. Yet, when his sister leaned over Henry, cooing at his tiny face, Alex's heart stuttered. The way she looked at the child, fond yet uncertain, did she too wonder what Alex dared not ask aloud? The baby's innocence magnified the silence, as though every glance toward him asked the same hidden question. Alex felt caught between loyalty to his family and the fragile hope that Lytuna's return had rekindled. As his sister prepared to leave, she touched Alex's arm and whispered, "Take care of her. Take care of the baby." Her eyes lingered on Henry a moment longer, then softened. The words were simple, but to Alex they echoed like a riddle. Was she urging him to trust, or warning him not to? The farm remained quiet after she left, yet Alex's soul roared with unrest. Suspicion shadowed even the tenderness of the morning, reminding him that sometimes the sharpest battles are fought in silence.
Tử Na sau một biến cố phát hiện Johnny không phải anh ruột. Cô rời bỏ tất cả bàng hoàng. Giờ đây cô quay về trang trại cùng đứa con nhỏ Henry Alex đang vòng tay đón cô, cố gắng che giấu nỗi lo, nhưng trong lòng đầy sự nghi ngờ. Henry có thực sự là con mình? Hai người cùng nhau dọn dẹp, chăm sóc vật nuôi, bữa cơm chung tưởng chừng yên ấm nhưng bị phủ bóng sự im lặng và ánh mắt dò xét. Tử Na hứa sẽ không bao giờ rời đi nữa. Alex muốn tin nhưng vẫn dò xét, khiến chị gái Alex đến thăm. Không khí thêm nặng nề, lời xin lỗi và dây dứt. Câu chuyện khép lại bằng lời hứa, xong mở ra câu hỏi: tình yêu có đủ sức mạnh để vượt qua sự nghi ngờ?